Number 7, generosity benefits from friendly competition. I'll read it to you in 2 Corinthians 9. We're picking up the second of the great 2 chapters on generosity in the New Testament. Paul says, 2 Corinthians 9, "Now it is superfluous for me to write to you about the ministry for the saints, for I know your readiness, of which I boast about you to the people of Macedonia, saying that Achaia has been ready since last year, and your zeal has stirred up most of them. But I am sending the brothers so that our boasting about you may not prove vain in this matter, so that you may be ready, as I said you would be. Otherwise, if some Macedonians come with me and find that you are not ready, we would be humiliated, to say nothing of you for being so confident. So I thought it necessary to urge you, brothers," here's the competition, "to go on ahead to you and arrange in advance for the gift you have promised, so that it may be ready as a willing gift, not as an exaction." Here's what he's saying. There's 2 churches that he's speaking to and of. One is in Macedonia, one is in Corinth. He's already stated in the previous chapter that the Macedonians are really struggling under an economic recession. They are at a pain point that is not unlike our present day. Yet, in spite of that, they were very, very generous. He said out of their strong poverty came overwhelming generosity. What he was saying is they had nothing, and they gave, he literally says, beyond their means. And he's using them as an example of people who are generous. And then he tells the Corinthians, the economic downturn hasn't hit you as hard. Basically, they were Seattleites. Our economy has fared better than some, better than most, in fact. And he says, though you are doing better financially, you are not as generous as those who are struggling more mightily. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to sort of use the Macedonians as a good example to spur the Corinthians on to greater generosity. And so one of the things we'll do in 2009, we're going to keep you regularly abreast of how things are going across the 7 Mars Hill campuses. A little bit of friendly competition can't hurt. And I saw one cool thing this last week. I didn't even know we were doing it. I was reading the PI, and I saw that downtown, Pastor Tim Gatos and his team, they had given away 400 coats and fed 550 people last week on the coldest day of the year, which I thought was wonderful, and it's good. And those are the kinds of things, Pastor Jamie and Pastor Tim Belts will join me at the end. We're going to be funding and resourcing some of those kinds of friendly competitions between campuses. Who can give more, who can serve more, who can help more. Not to boast, not to brag, not to have some sort of varsity, junior varsity view of those in Mars Hill, but just to have a little friendly competition to spur one another on, as the Bible says, to love and good deeds. And so I'll give you the update, and here's how it's going for us at Mars Hill. First thing we always do at the end of the year is we pull up the giving of the pastors and see, are the pastors being generous? Because if the pastors aren't generous, then it's totally hypocritical to say anything to the people in the church. The average pastor at Mars Hill is giving over $7,500 a year. So across the board, your pastors are being generous. Your pastors are giving at more than a tithe percent. They're doing very well. We're not concerned about them at all. It's exactly what you would have hoped for, exactly what we would have hoped for. We talked to one of the leading not-for-profit accountants in the region, and he said that the average giving in the Pacific Northwest is about $1,800 to $2,500 per adult per year. In areas of South Seattle, that tends to be a little lower. In areas on the east side and from the I-90 corridor up, it tends to be higher. So if you're on the east side, it's actually probably $2,500 plus. If it's North Seattle plus, $2,500 a year or more. If you're I-90 south, it's probably more toward that $1,800 amount. And the average Mars Hill adult giver is about $1,900 a year. So we're at the low end, particularly since most of our campuses are thus far on the north end and on the west side and on the east side. Statistically, we should be more at about that $2,500 level, and we're pretty low. And what's happening now nationally, it's interesting as I talk to pastors, they are freaking out because their giving is going down to our levels, where we just tend to live. We tend to be a fairly lean church. So here's the little friendly competition. I'll show you what's going on between campuses. Number 1 is Lake City, who I hear this morning had 0 people when we started services, so that may ruin everything for them. They were doing well till today. The average person at Lake City gives $216 a month and about $2,600 a year. So go Lake City. Number 2 is Shoreline. Up north, $205 a month, about $2,400 a year. Tied with them is West Seattle. So West Seattle and Shoreline are neck and neck. Number 3 is Bellevue, one of our newest campuses with Pastor Jesse, about $190 a month and about just under $2,300 a year. Olympia, our newest campus, way down south, is a smaller campus, but so far doing well in generosity. $174 a month, or about $2,000 a year. Downtown, $154 a month, about $1,800 a year. Ballard gets no gold star in its chart. Ballard is the Mariners of Mars Hill campuses. It is the Seahawks of Mars Hill campuses. We hope it doesn't become the Sonics of Mars Hill campuses, but it is at $130 a month, or about $1,500 a year. And part of our problem going into the year end, so you know, is that about half of the attendance is at Ballard. So if things were flipped and the preponderance of our attendance was at any one of the other campuses, we would actually have met and exceeded budget. But because of the struggles at Ballard, we're really in a pain point. Basically, the campuses are floating financially. They're all at or near, close to, within striking distance of budget. Not Ballard. Ballard, Pastor Jamie will get into the details. We're in the middle of going from a staff of 27 to a staff of 16, possibly less at Ballard. So big adjustment at Ballard for 2009. Some people being reallocated positions in the organization, others losing their jobs. And so this is a hard season for the Ballard campus particularly, and Ballard is struggling most mightily.